Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, hello and welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast for Disney Cruise Line history, trip reports, and general travel planning. Well, welcome to episode 13. We are going to continue with part 2 of our discussion on Disney Cruise Line versus Carnival Cruise Line with Christy and I. But before we jump into that, I want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day as I begin recording this. It's kind of the unofficial beginning of summer here in the United States. And for those of you who are going to be heading out on vacations this weekend and through this summer, I want to wish you all safe and happy travels. Also, I want to give a shout out to a good friend of the show's, the Towlers, who are boarding the Magic today over in Copenhagen on their 7-day Northern European cruise. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring John back once they get back from their cruise and have a fun time talking about their experiences up there in Northern Europe. Anytime you can get on a Disney cruise ship, whether it's in Copenhagen or down in Port Canaveral, it always puts a smile on my face. So I want to wish them and their family just a great adventure up there in Northern Europe. So without any further ado, let's jump into part 2 of Disney Cruise Line versus Carnival with Christy Puttick and myself. Well, cool. Let's move on to the kids clubs. And I know your son hasn't spent as much time into it, but what are your thoughts as far as the kids clubs go on the two different ships?
Well, Disney's kids clubs are more expansive. So I think Disney honestly said we could put a casino on our ships or we can make our kids clubs bigger, and they honestly chose to make their kids clubs bigger. So they have huge kids clubs and they're open like all day long. You could literally, I think, drop your kid off at 9 a.m. and whatever time and pick them up at the end of the night. They have some crazy hours. Carnival's hours are more truncated, so like they close several times a day. Whereas Disney has open houses, so maybe one half is closed of like the lab or the whatever the other one's called, the club, but they are open still to watch your kid. Whereas Carnival does close more. So that is definitely a big difference. Carnival has a relationship with Dr. Seuss, and they also have some programs to like teach people about or teach kids about the sea and stuff like that. Part of their Club Ocean. I think that's cool that they do have those sort of themes, whereas Disney does rely a little bit more on their characters and their movies, basically, to come up with sort of a theme for what's going on the ship or in the kids club.
They definitely
Two really cool things on Carnival that were a little bit different is that on the last day, Carnival leaves their kids club open, not to drop off your kid, but to allow them to play in the space if you needed to while you're waiting to disembark. So I think that's really cool. Disney's would be closed, like you can't wait there, but Disney doesn't have you wait. We'll talk about that later. But they have, on the Vista at least, they had kind of a lending library of Dr. Seuss books so that you could get, and they're all in pristine, brand new condition. You can rent out a Dr. Seuss book for a week or as many days as you wanted, or a couple of them.
Well, that's kind of a cool idea because, yeah. I mean, with our youngest one, he's kind of getting into the part where he can read himself now, but we've always hauled a whole bunch of books with because that's always kind of like our end routine, to read to him before he goes to bed. So that's kind of cool they have that on Carnival.
Yeah, so I was trying to tell my husband, we can bring less. He's like, I don't know what those books are like. It's not his favorite. So we need to bring all 8 books still. I'm like, oh my gosh. Carnival also had, in the little library area where they had the Dr. Seuss books, like a play area that you could drop in and play in with your kids. So I liked that. And then they had a couple little outdoor, which we talked about on the episode, outdoor play areas that you could play in with your kids. So I felt like on those levels, they were saying, here, spend some time with your child in this space that we've provided, which is nice. Now, Disney does open house in their kids club so that you can go and play with your kids in the kids club.
Yeah, so that's kind of a cool idea in the sense that because the open houses are kind of limited. They're kind of here and there as you kind of go on the ships with Disney, whereas if you had that ability, that is definitely a nice thing that Carnival does, that you could go and, if you wanted to just go play with your son or daughter, it kind of gives you that opportunity as well.
Right. And then people with single kids, one child, prefer, I'm assuming, the kids club that break up the ages. So like Carnival has 2 to 5 or whatever together. And that is one of your questions was, does Carnival offer a nursery? And they don't, but they do start the kids club at 2.
Right.
So whereas Disney does have a nursery and they charge by the hour up until 3, and then they have the 3 to 10s, right? Is that in the same group? And that's the thing. My husband and I, he was saying, yeah, but the kids club on Disney, like the space is just so huge and there's so many options, and maybe if we left our son, he would like that one better. The problem is there's no way that he would stay in there, at least not yet, with 10-year-olds running around him. You know, he gets intimidated by that. And so that's the one advantage of Carnival is that there are only other little kids with them.
Yeah, that is kind of a nice thing. I mean, the one thing that I've noticed on Disney, which we've talked about before, is the younger kids tend to hang out at the Oceaneers Club, and the older ones kind of hang out at the lab. But it still is a pretty big difference between 3 to, and that's not set. So obviously, some bigger kids could be in the club as well. But yeah, Disney does have a pretty big range.
Right, and that's when they don't both have when one of them doesn't have an open house. You don't have a choice. You know, there may be times you need to drop your kid off because you want to go on an excursion or whatever the case may be. On those C days, a lot of times Disney only has one section open at a time.
Yeah, if you don't understand,
6 days I meant port day.
Right. So if you don't understand that, so sometimes Disney will have the lab open for open house, or they have it closed, and the only thing that's open is the club. So all of those kids are going to be in one spot versus having the 2 options. So yeah, so it's definitely some pluses and minuses between the 2 of them. But
and there's a hallway, right, Steve, that connects. Because they don't have to exit the kids club to go from the lab to the club.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the only one that didn't have that was the Wonder, but during the recent refurb, they've done that too. So now the kids can go back and forth between the 2 without having to exit to go out to the or to go between the 2. So yes, there's a hallway that connects them. But I did a little bit of research, some other quick differences with the kids club before we move on. Like Christy was saying, carnivals are open like 10 to 1, then it's closed for an hour, then it's open from 2 to 5, and it's closed, and then it's open from 7 to 10. And then they do have an evening program, which is available, but I think it's called like Night Owls or something like that. But they charge you for it, and I'm totally lost it on my notes. Oh, here we go. Night Owls, it's $6.75 plus a 15% gratuity per child, and that goes from 10 to 1 o'clock in the morning. So if you wanted to leave your kid there later at night. Whereas Disney is open, the younger kids clubs, the club and the lab is open from 9 till 1, and then the Vibe and the Edge have some different hours. Those are obviously subject to change. They also said it's subject from ship to ship on Carnival, so once you know which cruise you're going to go on, if you're going on a Carnival cruise, you can go on their website and find out what those hours are going to be to see how it works with your schedule. Well, how about the pool areas? And you can't really compare because all the ships are so different as far as what they have available as far as slides and splash pads and whatnot. I was kind of thinking more just like, what was your overall impressions of the pool areas themselves? Was it overly crowded? Did one handle the crowds better than the other? What were your thoughts on that, Christy?
I can go into more detail, but
definitely.
Quickly, if you had a diapered baby on Carnival, there was no water area whatsoever you could put your kid in. So that's like one advantage that Disney has because they have the splash pad on all the ships for the diapered babies to go in and play. Otherwise, diapered babies cannot, or diapered toddlers and babies cannot go in water because I think it's a CDC rule, and they can't because the water doesn't, whatever it is, it's shared, and if someone goes to the bathroom. But Disney's pools themselves, we have talked about this. It's kid soup. It's just so crowded, and it's so many kids, and my child did not find it enjoyable. I think you said like your kids didn't, or at least one of them didn't as well. They're just so crowded. So the pools were, for swimming purposes, were definitely better on Carnival. And even one day when, I think we posted this one, the day that we were in Aruba, and because most people would get off the ship in Aruba, we had the entire back pool area completely to ourselves. There was nobody else out there for quite a while. And my son played in the pool by himself. It was wonderful. The Carnival pools are not heated, though, and so they were a bit chilly. which Disney's are not as chilly. But the Carnival pools were kind of dirty towards the end of the day. It was like maybe they didn't have a filter systems, but you could even look, even if you were looking from above, below. The one day it was a little gross.
Oh.
The last sea day. But like on the previous days, it didn't seem to be a problem. So I don't really know what that deal was. But so, and the pools themselves were like bigger and there was more space. They were really deep though. I had a hard time in some of the areas stepping. But now that I think about it, in Disney, I did as well. We went in the Disney pool. I took my son the last time and I could barely touch. I realize I'm only 5'2", but how are you going to have the only pool where kids can swim where the mom cannot touch the floor or a shorter person can't or even a shorter kid? So Carnival had bigger pools and then they were less crowded and there was more places to swim and stuff like that. Carnival does not have lifeguards, but also the one problem with lifeguards is that to some people means not watching your kids, and you can't do that because there's a lot of kids in there and the lifeguards can't, keep the eye on every single kid. And so that is something to be concerned about, of course. Okay, so on Carnival, the deck chair and the deck space area is not great. So on the same level as where the pools were, there were not deck chairs. And the one day, there was not a deck chair at all, not one single chair when we went to take my kids swimming in like the main pool where the big TV is on Carnival. I finally just went up to somebody and asked if I could put my bag on the back of their chair and like put my shoes underneath the back of their chair because I didn't know what else to do with it. And it was like a case where we weren't going to be sitting. We just wanted to go in the water with my son, but we had nowhere to put our stuff.
Right.
So on Disney, I feel like, yes, it's crowded, but there's always a chair to be found.
Definitely. That's kind of what we found too.
Maybe not silly.
And plus with the tables around on the outside too, people use that to eat. So people are kind of always coming and going with the table. So something's always kind of opening up. So you've got some space to find usually.
Right. You can put your stuff down to take your kids swimming. I don't feel like either company has a lot of seating in the sun for the adult-only areas. But Disney has a little pool in their adult-only area, which is quite nice, and Carnival does not. I think on some of their ships they had even what they were like considering a quiet pool or an adult-only pool, but they've just recently changed it and said they're not going to have that be the adult-only pool anymore. So that's not helpful. But they do have an adult-only deck, and they call it Serenity Deck, and it really is nice and serene. And but people are quite, they're chair hogs. And literally, my husband and I got to go for like an hour one day, and we found the very last two chairs, and like his chair was next to the toilet, and my chair was off by a walkway. So they were not in ideal locations. In Disney, I do feel like there's not as many chairs in the sun. If you wanted to be in the adult-only area on the same floor as the pool, there's not as many in the sun areas, but there's a ton of chairs at least.
Yeah, the adult areas I think are really, at least my experience is just the magic of the wonder, but the adult areas are really nice in the sense that you could always find a chair when we walk through there. And even in the evenings or the like late afternoons, they would have somebody out there playing the guitar. So they had entertainment going on, which was nice. They had the pool. They have at least one hot tub. Is it two maybe? I know there's one for sure in the adult area too. So I thought the adult areas on the Magic it seemed like a great place to hang out if you didn't have your kids with you, or if your kids are in the clubs or something like that. If you wanted to get away from the kind of the masses that are crowded around the general pool with all the kids in it.
But like I said, Carnival did have the Serenity Deck area is quite nice. Maybe a little bit crowded, definitely chair hog, but the furniture was all really nice up there. So.
Well, cool. So overall, it sounds like Carnival's got bigger pools, maybe a little bit nicer that way, but Disney's got the splash pads for the younger kids that might still be in diapers, and kind of the differences between the two there. Let's move on to, and there's so many different avenues on this one, entertainment, but what's kind of your overall thought about entertainment between the two as far as, and I'm just going to go with family entertainment. How's that rather than...
Yeah. We felt like Carnival had more varied activities.
Okay.
So whereas Disney, as my husband put it, sort of had activities for the youngest crowd, and then everybody else could watch that and adapt to it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the shows and stuff are going to entertain, engage the younger individuals, the younger kids, and then they hope everybody else doesn't mind them as well.
Right.
But like on Carnival, they had a lot of different options. So, and they had like even family comedy. So, in like on Disney, they have 2 things in the evening, right? That's at a bar. So you can either go to the evening show in the main theater production show and whatever that happens to be. So it's quote unquote a production show, or it's the like a magician or whatever. Or you can go to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your choices.
Right.
They occasionally have in between dinner seatings, they'll have trivia, but there's not a lot of entertainment quote unquote choices. Like at Disney or on Carnival, they have the piano bar that opens up pretty early, and even under 21 can be in there up to a certain hour. And they have a sports bar, so you can literally watch the game in like an environment that looks like a sports bar like you would have here in the States, as opposed to like the pub in England. They have the comedy shows that are like 4 shows a night, both for under 21 or under 18, one of those 2 ages, and then the adult ages. Then they have a main theater show, which, albeit they didn't have great seating for, you could not get tickets in advance to like reserve your spot. They had a good show, and the show I think was geared more towards adults, but could entertain kids, like with dancing and music and stuff like that, the shows that they would have. So we felt like they had more varied activities on Carnival in the evening that aren't even just attached to sitting at a bar and drinking, versus what the options are on Disney, even for a family.
It's kind of the older, maybe the older kids, when you talk about like going to a sports bar and stuff,
right,
know, where you can go and watch a game or a hockey game or a football game or something like that, something that maybe would entertain the older kids rather than going to see Tangled the musical or something like that they have on Disney.
Right.
So maybe some more varied opportunities for maybe some of the older kids to go and do and see some things.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'd mentioned was that Disney has the movies, and Disney's movie theater, like movie options, are better for most Disney fans. And so obviously it has to be something produced by a Disney company in some way. So Pixar or the Star Wars stuff now, or, just regular Walt Disney Company or whatever it's called. And so, and they show those movies for no charge. So even if it's like a 2D one or whatever, they do those, I think, right? There's no additional charge to go to it. Whereas on Carnival, they have an IMAX, but they charge like $13.
Wow.
And then even if you see a documentary, they have these IMAX documentaries, they charge still like $5 or $6 for them.
Those are all the little things that kind of add up over time, over the course of your cruise, too.
Right.
So,
and some people can go and not spend it. And so it really also depends. And then, frankly, really weigh it. Because even if you paid for the movies and you paid for a drink, like pop, if soda was what you wanted for you and your family, you're probably still not equaling the cost of a Disney cruise. So it is, for sure, a good, less expensive option. But they're not the same. But
right.
It is a less expensive option.
Right. And then what about just the overall quality? You think it was about the same as far as, and I mean, there's hit or miss on Disney too, I've heard, as far as some of the performers. And I'm not talking about the shows necessarily. Some people have their likes or dislikes as far as the overall shows that they show over and over again. But, some of the maybe comedy entertainers could be hit or miss depending upon what your taste is. But how would you determine the quality between the two? About the same, you think?
Yeah, I think. I think they still work them hard and want to do a really good performance.
Right.
There is a cruise. I remember when for my quote unquote spring break in high school, we went on a cruise, my mom and my cousin and I. The performers, it was like I just remembered it was Dolphin Cruise Line. I thought it was Carnival, but it was like, and Dolphin isn't in service anymore. Good little line, but it was like they just took them out of, I don't even know. They were not coordinated at all. They did not have any of their stuff together. And, I don't feel that way going to any kind of Carnival show now, that would be that way.
Okay.
But it was back in 1995.
That would. We're not gonna date that at all. So That was when you were, what, 3, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So 2 more points, or 2 more things to kind of maybe cover, and I think you got a good point on this, is the ports that you went to. And obviously they were 2 different types of cruises, and Carnival was Southern Caribbean, Disney was the Western Caribbean. But I think you got a good point on this as far as the opportunities to go to different places, and I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so, and it can't even be what we did on our ports because we don't do much at our ports right now. But overall, the opportunity to go to a new island and to a new destination is much greater on Carnival than it is on Disney. So the ship I was on Carnival was the Vista. During this season of travel, so everybody would sort of define the season as from December until, so like when the ships all get back from Europe, if they are going overseas, so November, December through like right now around April, mid to late April, it went to 3 or 4 different itineraries. The same ship had 3 or 4 different itineraries, and Disney's are going to have 2, right? Sometimes just 1. So the Dream just does 1 all the time. It's, either spending 1 day at sea or no days at sea, and then it goes to Nassau. Now, obviously, Disney has Castaway Cay, which is the very best island in the whole Caribbean and my very favorite place to visit. But it's one of the stops. I went on like 3 just because of the week that I had been cruising Eastern Caribbean cruises in a row on Disney. And except for the fact that they did change one of the ports, it was the exact same cruise. And like they changed it from St. Thomas to Tortola. So kind of the same. I mean, run by different countries, but the island is still essentially the same. With Carnival and Carnival Line as a whole, there is much better. There are many more opportunities to go to different countries because people always ask. So there are cruisers that just want to cruise because the ship is the destination, but a lot of people cruise because of the destination. And so I get asked every time, where's your cruise going to? And look at, even in the beginning of our conversation, which may or may not end up in the edits, we were asking, where did my cruise go? And honestly, it was not my first thought because that is not my big priority. But for a lot of people, it is. And you have a lot more opportunities to see different countries and cities on Carnival than you do on Disney.
Well, hopefully with the when they get the 2 new ships in a couple years, maybe they can start varying things up a little bit more. Because I know that's one thing that I've heard too from several people is, and I think that's why, what is it, in 2018 they got like a 10-day Southern Caribbean that the Fantasy I think is going to do, and it's like priced crazy because because it's going to places that are completely different, and people just flock to it because they're like, oh man, I want to be able to go to those places. So hopefully they
want to do something different than the same stops and the same itineraries for years and years and years. Holland America Cruise Line does not have as many ships, and they still manage to hit a lot of different islands and countries on their Caribbean cruises.
Right.
So to even use it as, well, Disney doesn't have many ships. Disney's taking the easy route there because they don't have to renegotiate contracts. They don't have to try something new out.
Yeah, they've got it down to science, and so they just keep pumping it in and out, and people keep coming.
And people keep booking. Every ship is, most ships are getting sold out or close to being sold out.
So hopefully with the 2 new ones, maybe it'll free it up to maybe start venturing out to some different places. But the other thing too is, when we got back from our cruise, you always get a comment card as far as what were your thoughts on it, and they leave a space there. I mean, let Disney know that, hey, we want to go to different places, we want to see different things, and I think that's why they went to Norway on top of Frozen, because they could capitalize on it, obviously. But make sure you're letting your voice be heard, because I mean, if they hear enough from all of us, then they'll start changing things around, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Or maybe they won't. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
So then that talks about the ports a little bit. How about just the ships themselves? What are your thoughts on those, just in general?
My husband said everything on Carnival revolves around a bar. Like, you literally walk in to the atrium, and there's a big bar right in the middle. And that's like in every single ship. But on the Vista, they have this glass, it was probably like an LCD screen, right? Those are the ones that the computerized And they would change the image, and that would go up into the ceiling, and it was pretty and it was gorgeous, but it was the first thing you noticed. Whereas on Disney in the atrium, you walk in, right, and there's all that open space for families to gather, and they have the little Mickey or what else, I think Minnie on some ships. So they have that little figure on the different ships that you can go and stand next to. And the bar, they have a bar on Disney, but it's off to the side. And my husband didn't even know there was one in the atrium because it's not a major part of their cruise. So that is a big difference of the cruise or the ships, that Carnival does associate a lot of their stuff with the with drinking. That is the type of clientele that they are looking. Even around the pool. The pool always has these bars like all around it. All around it. Is there even, Disney has those little teeny tiny ones off to the side, right? Like people just pop up and sell stuff. So like pop-up bars basically. And then, in the adult area they have the one in the back, but it's everywhere around the Disney ship. So
you mean the Carnival ship?
Right, sorry, the Carnival ship. So it's just a little bit of a different culture, and even the way it's laid out. But some other differences. We did notice the shopping was a little bit more varied on Carnival. You could buy different stuff. You could buy shoes. They had a shoe sale, and they had watches. They would put out stuff like they do on other cruise lines, where Disney doesn't really do that, and they really just sell their stuff. I mean, it's very infrequent that there's some watches in a case over to the side. And there's a couple of sunglasses that are made by other companies off to the side. But it's not a shop. They're not major things, whereas most other cruise lines do have shops full of other things that you could buy, quote unquote, duty free and stuff like that. And that's just, Disney just sells their things. It's just not important to them.
Right.
And so, most of what you can buy is going to be of a Disney figure or a logo, something that Disney has made to sell you.
Anything else as far as the overall feel of the ships? How about we already talked about the cleanliness. I think they all do a pretty good job as far as that goes.
Yeah, it was very clean.
What about just getting around? How does it feel crowd wise? Are they about the same as far as just moving in and out of this different spaces and whatnot? And
the restaurants and stuff like that, I think that feels exactly the same.
Okay.
They open up restaurants. Disney, of course, always is going to have more kids just bopping around the dinner seatings in the foyer, in the atrium area. Just the nature of who they have on board.
Right. And it goes back to... go ahead.
But one of the things, it was in one of the questions in your notes was and I think you just said it too, is getting around. So Carnival has that casino on one of the lower floors, sort of in the middle. They also have a restaurant kind of in the middle. And where Disney has the Royal Court in the middle, at least on the Fantasy and the Dream, and I think on the other ones, you can get around them. You can get around that restaurant to get from the front to the back, but there are several floors on Disney or on Carnival that you can't just walk all the way through. And I think the one that's maybe the trickiest on Disney is the 5th floor where the kids club is, at least on the newer ships, because it does take over half the ship, but you can still cut completely across. You just have to go down the one hallway that actually cuts across. But Carnival has several floors, and they all do on every one of their ships, that you cannot get from forward to aft. And so, not our favorite feature, and you have kids or families or a scooter, wheelchair, you have to take the elevator. I think Disney wins in that category.
Well, cool. Well, so unfortunately, what happens on every cruise is we come to the end of it, and so we have to disembark. And I thought we'd kind of look at that real quick too before we finish up. Any thoughts on disembarkation between the two?
I feel like Disney's disembarkation is sort of like its arrival. It's pretty easy. Even if there's a line, it's not chaotic. You're not sitting in a lounge. So Carnival approaches disembarkation like every other major cruise line, where you have your departure time based on either what time your flight is or what type of cabin category you have. And you have to go to a lounge after 8 o'clock or 8:30. You have to leave your cabin by 8:30 on Carnival. So then you have to go to a lounge and sit until it's your time. They call your number. So you literally listen to them call your number. The numbers go up really high. And the last number is at 10:30. Wow. So unless you're doing express walk-off and just getting off the ship with your own luggage beforehand, you have to sit and wait potentially in this public lounge for 2 hours, listening to them call different numbers. That's annoying. And it's annoying when you have little kids. Now, you could do express walk-off, and so it's not an issue, but you have to carry your own luggage, which is also annoying if you have little kids. If you had an early flight, then they usually let you off in one of the earlier groups as well. If you're in a suite, you do get off earlier, or if you have faster to the fun, you may disembark the ship earlier as well. You have a lower number. And so we were able to obviously utilize that to get us off the ship. So it wasn't a problem. We didn't have to sit around. But if we did, it wouldn't have been ideal. But Carnival also has the nice, easy breakfast. So you can go to a sit-down breakfast as late. It closes. They close the doors at 8:30, so you can arrive up until 8:30. Whereas Disney, they have that seating, which we've talked about. So that first seating, if you had first seating for dinner, you are going to breakfast that last day at 6:45 or 6:15 in the morning or something like that. Some ridiculously early, ungodly hour. So you don't have to worry about that on Carnival. Like, you can go and have the breakfast, or they have the buffet, of course.
Well, cool. Anything else that I've had to cover? Wi-Fi. Okay, there we go.
So really quick, Disney they do their Wi-Fi by megabytes, and you can purchase a plan, and you use up megabytes by downloading stuff or whatever. However you use the internet, the more juice it takes, the more you pay. You do get the free 50 megabytes the first day of the cruise if you sign up on the first day. It only works on the first day. You have to sign up then. And honestly, you could probably make that work to just check your email for work purposes for a cruise, like even that's a week long. And on a shorter cruise, easy. But Carnival has packages you can purchase. So and the texting. So this is one thing where the price becomes a difference. Disney has the app that you use on like your iPhones and I think Androids, right?
Yep.
Where you text each other, you could text your kids, and it's included in the price. On Carnival, you pay $5 for the week. So it's not a very high price. Obviously, it's very low, but you still pay. It's not included in your cruise fare. But they also have, so as for the Wi-Fi though, they have a week-long package. Like you can pay for the day. You can do it for like 1 day or 2 days, but you pay by the day. So, and you can use the internet as much as you want.
That's nice.
The disadvantage of that is it makes you go on the internet more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You like put that away when you're paying by the megabyte.
No, it's totally true because my youngest's habit is to get up and watch a show on the iPad in the morning. And the first day we were on our last cruise, he was like really cranky about the fact that he couldn't get up and do, because he's a creature of habit like a lot of us, and
right.
He couldn't watch a show. But by the end of the cruise, he didn't even miss it, and it was kind of like a nice, refreshing thing. I mean, I didn't bring this up to him; he's not going to really appreciate it. But from my my perspective, it's kind of nice to just disconnect and not be part of that, unless you need it for work or something, I suppose. But that's one of the reasons why we like cruising, is you can disconnect and step away for a little bit.
Yeah, and they had like Disney or Carnival has a couple of different packages. So if the one package is mostly for the younger folks that just want to do social media. So you can do the Instagram or the Twitter or Facebook. And so people could message through Facebook. So that's how you could communicate with home for the older ones. But that was just $5 a day. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah.
And then like we got the $16 a day package that then they give you a little discount for buying the whole week that you could email as well. So, and then we can just we shared that within the family, but that was nice. But again, then you're connected. If you have the ability to be online, you do. So it's kind of nice when you can put it away.
Definitely.
So those are the two different ways to get online on those companies.
Well, cool. So, I mean, I guess to kind of sum things up a little bit, I really appreciate you coming on and kind of giving your views on your two different cruises and the two different cruise lines. And just like everything else, there's two different companies that offer kind of two different products. And the way I kind of see between the two, like just listening to you talk about it, Disney's kind of more of an all-inclusive. You pay your one price and you get generally just about everything included into it, whereas Carnival is kind of more like the airlines nowadays where, here's your base price, you're going to pay this, and if you want anything else, then you're going to pay a little bit more for this, that, and the other. And the price that probably generally comes in a little bit cheaper even when you do that on Carnival versus Disney. But they both, from what I've heard you talk about, is they both have their pluses and minuses, and it really comes down to what you're looking for in your cruise coming up, whether it meets your price point or where you want to go or what you're hoping to get out of it, I guess.
Absolutely.
Is that a good way to summarize maybe a little bit of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Anything else you can think of, Christy, before we wrap things up today?
I think that's it. I mean, one thing is I should have put this because I was just staring at my notes really quick. We should have put this in the cabin section, but the Carnival does not have enough plugs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they only have 2. And it's a brand new ship. How do they only have 2? And then they had the 2 USB connections, but that wouldn't charge my iPad for whatever reason. So you kind of need to bring your own like plug extender. I mean, you can't bring a
I'm totally drawing a blank on that. Yeah.
I know. So whatever, you guys. It's another one of those cases where you can yell it at your podcast while you're listening to it.
Exactly.
So the strips, whatever, you don't get the energy in there. But you can't bring one of those, but you can just bring the plug that has like 3 different plugs on the end of it. So I would definitely recommend that. But both are good and they're fun. And, Disney, this is a DCL podcast. We're Disney fans through and through. And there is definitely something extra that you get.
And that's why we keep going back.
Exactly. And they get you. Somehow that mouse gets you. Maybe they put something. Maybe they, in their food, they do something to make us all addicted.
Okay, so here's my final question. I've been saving it because this is like one of my big contentions. And I'll be honest, it's a little bit with Disney. But are you a coffee drinker?
Oh, I do drink coffee, yes.
Who had the better coffee? And I'm not talking about going to the Cove or paying for coffee, just regular coffee. Did you try it on both?
So I did.
Do you remember, or do you have an opinion?
Yeah, they're not good. Neither of them are good.
Okay.
So on Disney, both lounges have those Nespresso machines. Like the family concierge lounge had it. And so does on Carnival, and so does the concierge lounge on Disney. So I could make, those cappuccinos and the different types of espresso coffees. And so I think in general those are better, right? Their regular coffee is the same.
About the same.
I mean, you drink it, right? Because if you're a coffee drinker, you're drinking your coffee one way or another. But no, regular coffee on both, neither are good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible, but they could up the game a bit.
Yeah,
if they wanted to.
My coffee at home better.
Yeah. Well, cool. So what is coming up next on yours as far as cruising goes? Where are you headed to next?
We do a Castaway Key double dip on the Dream. So it's a 5-night cruise for my son's 4th birthday. Really was that I wanted to go on this cruise, and I noticed that the price was the least expensive that particular week, and it happens to be the week of his birthday, so it was like a little win-win-win. So I am super excited. I love that I get to spend 2 days at Castaway Key.
That's awesome. I'm totally jealous, in a good way.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, everybody should be. It's just, there's no better place. There's no better island. If somebody likes a little bit of an island day, it is the best place to do it. So I am really excited about that.
Well, cool. And we've talked about this before on all the rest of the shows, but I should throw it out there one more time. Where can people get a hold of you between now and then if they want to get in touch with you, Christy?
Just one more time, Steve.
Yes.
After this cruise, or after this podcast, are we never putting my contact information at the end?
No. We're going to always put it in the show notes, but I think we've beaten it into the ground. But we'll throw it out one more time. How's that?
Yeah. So my website is packyourpixiedust.com, which is just like a little blog. And then I am on Instagram at packyourpixiedust. Facebook is the same as well. And then Twitter, it's packyrpixiedust.
And definitely go out there and follow Christy on social media because she's always posting some pretty cool pictures when she's out on her vacations, which seem to pop up pretty regularly lately, it seems like. So
I'm a little addicted.
Yeah. I just wish I could get the
research.
Time. Exactly. Research for your clients. So, well, thank you so much for coming on again, Christy. I really appreciate your thoughts on Carnival versus Disney, and really enjoyed talking with you today.
And I'm going to put this out there.
Definitely.
People need to go back and look. I'm going to post it on Instagram and probably on Twitter. So go back and look at my pictures. That I will have a picture of Steve and I together, because I highly doubt this podcast will be released before we are in Disney, but we will be in Disney the weekend after we've recorded this. And so look back, because there will be a picture of Steve and I.
Definitely. Maybe watching Wishes or something like that. It's only, got a month left? Less than that?
Right. A few weeks.
Well, cool.
A couple weeks, actually. It's like 2 weeks. And, there's going to be a little pub crawl situation, so you can look for some pictures.
Definitely. Well, once again, I look forward to that, and I really do appreciate you coming on, and we'll look forward to you on the next show, Christy.
Thanks.
All right. You too. Bye. Well, that is going to be a wrap for episode 13, and I hope you really enjoyed Christy and I's discussion on her experiences on Disney Cruise Line versus Carnival. If you could, I'd like to ask one more time, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, we'd love it if you would go to iTunes and leave us a review. That helps us get the word out on the show and also continue to grow it. And I also want to throw it out there, if anybody's interested in coming on the show, you can reach me at DCL Podcast on Twitter or through Facebook. Just type in DCL Podcast and leave us a message there. And it's super easy to do it. We just record over Skype, and it's always a fun time talking Disney Cruise Line or just your travel experiences with Disney. So once again, thanks for coming back. And if you're heading out sometime soon on a trip to on DCL or just even to Walt Disney World, Disneyland, or Aulani, we want to wish you and your families safe travels and fair winds as you continue on your next adventure. See you next time on the DCL Podcast.